Okay, this podcast is going to go over how to use math within Visual Basic, specifics to tax. And so let's go ahead and look at it. I've got a subtotal line, a tax line, tax total, and then total. So the user enters in the subtotal and the tax, like 7.25. This line will be calculated the total tax amount of the subtotal, and then the total will be the subtotal plus the tax amount sums the total. So go ahead and run it to show you what it looks like. I want to put in $100, tax 7.25, submit. Tax amount is 14 cents. Total $100.14. So let's look at behind the scenes. I'll double click on the submit button because that's the object that has all the code in it. So before we look at the submit button, I want to look at the tax function. I had to create a function, and this week we're going over functions in your reading. And all a function is an area of code that completes a certain task, or tasks plural. In this function, it receives and then it returns. And like most functions, well, functions can do either one of two things. They can do something, receive something and do something, or they can receive something, do something, and return that final result. So in this case, function task is receiving a variable, a double, and a double. So two doubles. The first double is called total, second is tax value. When you create a function, you have to put in the parentheses what the argument is for that function. So if that was all this function did, that would be just a function that takes in some data and does something with it. But this one has an as statement at the end of it. What that's going to mean is when this function is called, it's going to return a value that's a double as well. So the 72.5 number that was entered in and the 100 number, if we go to the button here, first thing I do here on the button is declare a double for tax total, a double for total, and then tax total equals tax, which is that function. And you'll notice when I hover over it, it tells us the arguments requirements for this function, which is a total, which is a double and a double. So total is double and tax value is double. So the argument is a double, comma, double is needed. So the subtotal, which is the top box on the app, goes here. The tax is what goes here, and that's actually found here. You grab it from these two. So subtotal and tax. It takes that, brings it to the function, and now here in the first line of the function, I declare a double called total value as double. Total value double equals total, which comes from the subtotal, divided by tax value times 100. And I want to mention to Scott that's in our class who looked at this code earlier, I did not have the times 100 in here, which makes a big difference when it comes to correct value of tax. So thanks, Scott, for bringing that to my attention. So anyway, we have total divided by tax value times 100 is going to give the total value of tax of, in this case, $100. So it's going to be 100 divided by 7.25 times 100 is going to give the 14 cents here, or the 0.14, whole bunch of other values past it. Then return total value. What that's going to do is on this line, it's going to come right back to here, and tax total will now be the summation of this return value. But if I was to stop there, in fact, I'm going to purposely comment out some things here to show you. I'm going to comment out that tax total line, and I'm going to comment out the let me just comment out the tax total line right now and go ahead and run the app again. So we want to show you how there's formatting that needs to take place as well. So you'll see this ugly number here that's created for the tax amount. Well, simple math is 0.1379 all the way down to this 9 would round to 0.14. So it'll be 14 cents in the round. But how that's done, I'm going to show you here in the code how it's done, is you take that total amount of tax and you use a function method in Visual Basic called format currency. And so I did format currency, which takes a value, and so I put in the tax total, and then the second argument is how many decimals do you want after the value, whole value number, and I put in here 2. So it's going to give 0. whatever. So in this case, it's going to be 0.14 for the total. It'll round it up like we want. And so this line actually ends up being 14. And that's what shows up on the tax amount line. The next one to get the total now is I take the subtotal times the tax total, comes into the total value here. Then I take on the tax total to format that, I format that as currency as well as just total. Now, one of the reasons why I don't have to put in the comma 2 on this one is I've already done it up here. But I could, if I wanted to, do that as well here. But it was already been done up here in the tax total. So it's going to take and now round that up. Now, if I was to leave this out, this format currency out of this, let me take that out. In fact, I'm just going to copy this line. And I'm going to put in just total here, to show what it looks like before being formatted. So I'm going to put in 100, 7.25. There's a formatted tax amount and the total amount. You'll notice it didn't really do much. But now let's take out the formatting tax amount, just comment that out, and run it again. Big difference. And so by leaving out the format currency, you'll notice things aren't formatted, and we don't want that, especially if it's a register type of app or something. And so by using the format currency, that's going to help us round the tax. It's also going to help us to round the total. Put that back in there. Over to that line. And so what I finally did at the end here was, after I got the formatted for the total, I then just plugged it into the total value text box. Challenge for this week is to add a $sign to the total text box, and you could even add one to the tax text box as one of the challenges. So let me run it again as we end here. 100, 7.25. Submit it. Here's our correct tax amount and correct total amount. So that concludes the tax app for week 9. Have a great week.